Hello, hello, hello. Here we are with the Dev Talk Show. We are back. It's a Wednesday night. It is January 12th. Happy New Year. First show of the new year. And I'm here with Rich Ross and Chris Gomez, and we are kicking off the new year. We're excited. We took a little bit of a break around the holidays, as many people do, with traveling and holidays and family and all that festive stuff. And here we are back for a show, welcoming us into the new year. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing real good. Happy to be doing the show again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anybody have any good stories from their holiday or their break or anything like that? I mean, what's going on, guys? I haven't talked to you guys, literally. I haven't spoke to you guys.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been pretty quiet. I disconnected for 2 weeks, which was fun. Did a lot of hiking, did a lot of hanging out with my kids, so it was good.
Hiking, that's always cool. I always like winter hiking. No bugs, less dirt. Like that. Seriously, it's great. You're not sweaty and gross generally. Winter hiking's great.
Yeah,
we're actually out at a place called High Rocks.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. Really nice scenic views overlooking the I forget which river, but yeah, a lot of fun.
Cool. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, it was it was quiet in terms of didn't go anywhere, didn't specific, but did get to spend time just at home. And I guess the big exciting thing was a lot of people know my daughter plays ice hockey, so she's a pretty good ice skater. But that also means that she spent so much time on the ice that she didn't know how to ride a bike, which, she's 11, so a lot of 11-year-olds know how to ride a bike. So she got a bike for Christmas, and I actually was fairly confident. I felt like, I said, look, I'm not going to tell you it's exactly the same thing, but I think, number one, at her age, that I can talk her through it and then kind of relate to some of the balance and the momentum. She was good in afternoon, so that was cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was.
Hope she's proud of herself. Congratulations, Sam. That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, of course, because it's that time of year, we've spent a lot of time at hockey rinks and played a lot of games and getting ready for the playoffs, which are basically going to hit end of February. So the season's winding down, and it does mean that we have done crazy things, like gotten up super early to drive to the northern tip of New Jersey to play 2 games and then be home at 9 p.m. at night and say, wow, that's all we did today.
That's a big commitment. It's cool that you guys are willing to do that for her. I don't know if I like to think I love my kids a lot, but I don't know if I love them that much. I don't know. No, of course I do. But that's a lot. I've always said to many friends, I encourage my kids to do everything. I'm like, just don't play hockey. Because I know that it is just, I go to the soccer games every weekend, but it's at noon, maybe it's at 3:00 in the afternoon. We go to soccer, we go to all the other things. My son does scouts, all those things. My daughter horseback rides and all these things. And I love watching her, but I'm always like, don't do the hockey. I don't need that 5 a.m. ice time or whatever it is that you guys get up for.
It used to be worse when they were younger. Usually the younger kids go first. So we're kind of in a nice sweet spot where things might not start until 10, 11, 12. But you know what? It as they get into high school, it flips back around. And I see a lot of these middle school and high schooler kids starting practices and games at 8 or 9 or 10. And it's like, wow, they got to go to school tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. And later at night. Yeah, that's rough.
Yep.
Well, that was why I gave it up. It's just, when you start a game at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and you got to be at work the next day. That's it.
I know friends that do adult leagues, and they still do it. I'm like, what's up? They're like, oh yeah, it's 10 o'clock, got a game.
Getting ready for a game, yeah. You haven't. Yeah. What do you mean getting ready for a game? Yeah, I'm gonna leave in about an hour. What do you mean an hour?
Yeah, the game's not even starting, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you got to go out for beers afterwards, right? You got to go out for a beer afterwards. So we went to Vail, Colorado for break, and
awesome.
I was had a great time. That's an activity. You know, we don't skate, but we ski. I love skiing with my kids. It's so much fun. But I was really worried about the travel. I mean, I was kind of wondering if we were going to regret that decision to do that. I know people that got stuck in other countries over break and couldn't come home because of COVID. Several stories of things like that, you know, and the airlines were having all those problems. But we said, well, you know, you plan that stuff so far in advance, you know, and you book these flights and, you know, all the things you do. So we went for it, and knock on wood, you know, worked out great. The only problem was they got snow a week beforehand. It looked really bad. It looked like we weren't going to be able to ski much. Started snowing. It snowed the whole time we were there, and there's plenty of snow. They still didn't open the whole mountain because of staffing shortages, which is something I just hear over and over again. You go to a store, and they're like, people are out. Everybody's out sick with COVID. You know, it's not even that they can't hire people. The people they hired are out sick. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I feel so bad. It's just such a shame, you know, that so many people are affected. But hey, that's that. You know, now we're back, right? We all had a break, and here we are with the show, and we're going to be talking about API management tonight, huh?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, now we talked about API management. Did anyone check? I feel like it might have been a year and a half, 2 years ago. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not.
Did I put that in the notes? I know I did check. I went back and looked to see when we did that show, and December of 2019 was when we did that one.
Oh yeah, look at that! Wow, that's a pretty long time. We've been doing this a while, guys.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, really?
Yeah, you know, we've been doing this a while. We talked about API management a while ago. It was a topic I personally really enjoyed. This is one of those topics where, and sometimes we have these, where sometimes we have topics where the three of us are each kind of knowledgeable on the topic. We share a lot of things. And sometimes we have a topic like this. I can't speak for Chris, but Rich knows, you know, a good amount about this. I know whatever I remember from the last time we did it, right? And but it's a topic that I'm really excited about. I love this because I'm going to be learning stuff tonight, and I think it's something that we keep talking about at work, that we feel like that extra layer of API management would be helpful to us on top of, you know, other things we do in Azure, and I'm sure we'll get into that, and you can give everyone an explanation of it. But it's a really cool topic, and I'm excited.
Let me ask you, given kind of what you were just backgrounding and you know, laying out there, if you can share what's, you know, just because we're not going to do a bit of background around API management, you know, we're just going to kind of jump into some of these things here. But what's your, you know, when you say you're interested in learning it, tell me why you might be, you know, what is it you're interested in? How might you, if you can, use it in your organization, kind of thing?
Yeah, so if I first of all, I have to be careful to make sure that I remember what it does, right? But if I recall correctly, it helps in a few areas. Okay, one is I believe centralized, sort of like maybe I'm not using the right term, but sort of like DNS management, right? Where everything comes into that single point. I think it's sort of serves as like an entry point to an API. So it might be on 5 different servers, but the API is the API management instance, I guess, if that's what you call it, has the host name, right? I thought it simplifies some of that. I think there's some simplification to security by using it, if I remember correctly, and things like sort of you know, load and I think there was other stuff too. I know that it centralizes a bunch of APIs into a common area, and I think it gives us the ability to, if I have several APIs, and I might be wrong about this one, if I have several APIs with different endpoints, then they can sort of be aggregated together somehow. Is that correct? Or maybe that's a stretch.
So you could have so essentially, kind of, you can have APIs that live in many different locations, right? They could obviously we can put them in Azure. There's a way to make them be available from on premises.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so you can actually, there's a networking component in API management that lets you create or connect API management to a virtual network. And if that virtual network is connected to your environment via VPN or express routes, you have a traffic or a way to route traffic to that API that lives over your network, you can actually route traffic all the way through Azure down to your environment, talk to that API that lives on premises, and take that response back up. It could be on other clouds as well, right? So this becomes a location or a way of surfacing up your APIs wherever they live, and almost thinking of it like an API. Your API estate is, as it were, right? If you could, the whole part of that conversation, if you could share out this information or this data, how might you build applications? What kind of relationships can you make with your customers or your partners, and those kind of things? So it really does start to open up different ways of leveraging data that you might have in your kind of business applications. So. Yeah, so there's a lot that it can
cool
do.
Stuff.
And certainly whenever we talk microservices, this becomes one of the key things that we think about, right? Or just even building applications in general and having a common URL that we can point to access all the backend.
That's what I meant when I meant by aggregating. That's kind of what I was saying. They sort of seem like all of a sudden they're all one API. Even though they're distributed APIs, or if that's the right terminology, but that's what I meant by putting them together. So it's cool, So I don't know. Do we have a way where? Do you have some setup examples or demos or something that you want to show, or do we want to?
So what I should do is probably share my screen, because that would be helpful.
Chris is getting excited right here. This is where Chris goes, let's see if this works.
Exactly. All right, let's try that.
Okay. Well, I see it on Skype.
Everything will blow up.
So I think I have to do a quick resize here.
It's real quick before you share. Rich, do you need to do anything with Azure Mask or anything like that? Just reminding you.
No. I don't even have Azure Mask installed on here. So what I'll do is just get rid of that. Yeah, this is one of the things while Chris is working on it. One of the things I did over, actually it was Thanksgiving break, was just completely rebuild this machine, because I've been up and running for about 9 months or so. And usually once a year, I like to clear things out and start over. And side topic, I have been many, if not all of the installs that I did were leveraging Winget.
I knew you were going to say that. You've been mentioning that for a while, that Winget, like as a topic. We've talked about that a little bit. So you were able to just is it scripted? Are you that far along with it where you can just say, build my new machine?
I have the commands to do it. I just did not. This was the first occasion where I started to build out that script. So I have another machine around here that when I get a few cycles, I'm going to basically rebuild that one. And
we're good to show your screen, right? Like it's okay to show it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. I see a comment there on YouTube from Rich Corkery. Hey, Richard, how are you? Thanks for the comment of the beard. You guys haven't seen me in a while. And it's getting kind of scraggly. I told the guys off camera, I got my first complaint today from my wife. Usually I start growing it around November, and it's all good for a while. And then today she's finally like, don't you think it's getting a little long there, so we'll see how long it lasts, but I'm being lazy. I don't have to shave this way. It makes it a lot easier, so I'm lazy.
The ski trip is over. Get rid of the beard.
The ski trip's over. Yeah, it kept me warm, so now I'm back. We'll see how long it lasts. So we got your screen up, right?
You got the screen? Yep. I highly recommend looking at WinGet. Everything we do here, OBS, Voice Meter Banana, Skype, anything you could think of, I was able to find and install for that and get it into my machine. So last plug for that.
Cool.
All right. So back to API management. So this is the one thing I did do because, to be honest, it takes quite a while for everything to set up, sync up, all the networking components to get put in place, that kind of stuff. So API management is, think of it as a facade over top of whatever APIs that you want to share out or make available to your applications. What we're going to do here, and I'll show here, we have essentially a gateway URL. So that
make sure you zoom in, because
oh, thanks, man.
You're real far away.
7-inch monitor, kind of. Let's see, did that do this one too?
What size monitor do you have?
I got 28, 27, 28, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Love it.
Let's see. So this it takes a little bit to set this up. I actually was playing around with Bicep as a way of creating components in Azure. So I actually played around with that and got it working that way. But you can do it through the portal, the CLI commands, there's PowerShell, all kinds of different ways to create this instance. But you do need some time because it does take a good bit to kind of do it. Not something we could do on the show. So, but now that we have this, we can start to look at right here so I can see what I'm doing. We start to add an API to it. We're going to do that manually here. I'm going to go ahead and look at this API screen. And this is kind of, and if you guys have questions, let's just keep it interactive. Same with the folks in the chat. I'm not able to look at chat because I don't have any other unused screen real estate. So feel free to relay questions up if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. We'll help with that. Yeah.
So we have, when you want to bring in an API, there are a number of methods that you can use to start from, right? So you can start just from a straight old HTTP call, and we'll do that one in a little bit. You can do WebSockets through here. You can actually point to a GraphQL endpoint. But what's really cool is you can bring in existing definitions of your API. So if you have what we used to call Swagger, or what's now commonly known as an Open API spec, you can basically point to that URL or that location where that spec lives, or upload a spec file and use that to build out, because that's essentially the contract of your API, right? You're going to give me this data, you're going to call this method, and it's going to give you this information in return. That is what will, that's kind of what that Open API definition is. That basically will, with a couple clicks, you'll see we'll be able to set up a number of different API endpoints inside of this interface. Waddle, WSDL, if you have those kind of definitions, you can bring those in here too. So some of the old
hang on that for a sec. Love to see that WSDL's there. So those of us that have WCF services, right, with XML, SOAP and stuff like that. So I remember this from our last conversation, right? We shouldn't glance over that too quickly, I think. So I can then now expose my existing SOAP APIs through this API management tool.
Yes.
And I thought, now that I remember, if I remember correctly to what you said last time, and I hate to do this because if I'm wrong, it's going to be like really depressing, right? But I thought you said then that because it's going through API management, that even though it's a SOAP API, it could be exposed as something other like a traditional API and then route it through. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah. So again, API management being that layer over top of the API. So you're going to talk REST into API management.
Yeah, right.
Application down to the SOAP call is going to get translated into the SOAP call, essentially.
Yeah, so that's really cool, right? Because you can sort of modernize your if you want to modernize your sort of existing services that are WCF and say, well, I wish it was my customers all want a REST call and I don't have that yet, or whatever the reason is, right? Well, boom, I think you got it, right?
Yeah, and that's the idea. You want to, those services, if they've been around that long, they probably still provide some kind of value to the organization. So, don't have to rewrite them. If you don't, this gives a translation layer for you to do that. And then, of course, because this is written in Azure, or it's a service in Azure, we can actually expose services that use RESTful communication as well. So whether it's a logic app that takes an HTTP trigger, an app service, which is essentially just a place to host your web applications, an Azure function, which lets you write a little bit of code, but again with that HTTP endpoint on it, and then finally having a container app, which is something we haven't talked about, and we have to kind of put on the list to talk about. But it is, I believe that came out Ignite time last year, so like October, November. So that capability to have a container running inside of a service that is essentially something like a managed Kubernetes environment. So I don't have to interact with Kubernetes or stand up an AKS environment to orchestrate my containers. I can basically just run my containers inside of this container app environment, but it's Kubernetes behind the scenes that's running and maintaining everything for you.
There's a show topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we definitely
so when they say create from Azure Resource, are they just basically saying sort of like import an existing app service, import an existing function app, something like that?
Yeah. So let's see. This isn't. Let me see if we do browse. Right. So this is all of the logic apps that I have in my environment. So I'm trying. This is just my demo.
Right.
Subscription.
Not too many. Right.
Yep. Same thing would be true if I wanted to go ahead and look for my app services. Should be a lot more of these. Yeah. So I can actually start to bring them in. So it really just showcasing them and putting them on top for you. We won't go through the rest of them because I don't think we have any of those created inside here. Okay. So
right. So what was neat is like Andy talked about, there's an opportunity to take something that's already kind of like an API service, and then even do that translation from RESTful to WSDL and so forth. But the second row is more about go off and implement a logic app, but the people who consume it don't know or care. It's going to feel like a one of these front ends. I guess I'm not sure that I would want to do this, but I guess I could expose a logic app, and then if I really wanted to, expose a WSDL contract.
Well, you don't. If you're talking to a logic app, and I'm going to do that real quick here. So if I do, what was it? Maybe
that's kind of getting into the weeds, but I feel like there's a pivot between the two rows. One of them is the type of interface, and the second is a resource that you've so just concentrate on writing the code. Don't worry about, because there's a lot to APIs, and I know we'll probably cover some of this stuff, but it's so easy in the demos, right? Somebody says, "Hey, look how awesome minimal APIs is. API in 6 lines of code, yeah!" And then that's cool, and that all works. But then the real world begins of, oh, but now your consumers need to authenticate, so they're going to need bearer tokens, maybe, I don't know. And then, oh, but you probably want to rate limit them so somebody can't come in and just hammer your... And do you want to write all that? And so I feel like this, the value add here is that, because somebody could say like, well, I've already got a logic app. What do I need API management for? It's like, for all this other stuff that we're going to talk about.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? I like that, Chris. And in my case, right, we have a bunch of web APIs, logic, and we have the Azure functions. We have all that stuff already. So you could, begs the question, well, what would I need this for, right? And so, but I think you're right. It's all that extra stuff. It's like the gravy on top or whatever, and the way it simplifies things. And I look forward to seeing more of that in this demo.
Yep.
So now you're in the Logic app here, right?
So just to show why this Logic app showed up, right? And then there are 3 or 4 on my list as well of Logic apps, and those didn't. This one has an HTTP request. So essentially, I could give that URL to someone, and they can call my Logic app. Isn't providing any payload, so it's just probably, we're doing a post, but there's nothing in the payload basically. So that's why it makes it easy to host it through API management, because it's just a RESTful endpoint. If we needed to pass a payload into here because the Logic app does something inside of here with the workflow by breaking down that payload and doing something based on the information in there, then we would have those in there as a bunch of steps, and API management would still pass that information through. Just let it go ahead and run. But yeah, that's important. So for all of these things that you might have, this gives you that layer to do a lot of the things that Chris just mentioned you would have to write code for on top of, for the most part. So let's do this. Let's bring in let's bring in a URL, HTTPS. We're going to do this one here, conference API. And you can see just by adding that in, it's already gone ahead and given me this information because it knows, I think I can do this. So that is your definition, and that's why API management is able to start to fill in the blanks of all of those things, right? Like here's the title, description. It's able to pull those in and use those and drop them into these fields here. If I go to full, see the rest of it here with description and those kind of things. So right off the bat, it becomes that easy to get up into eyes there. So here, I'm going to move this to HTTPS. I'm going to include a suffix. We're going to do conference. And what that means is API management, and I think you kind of mentioned this, Andy, has that base URL, that common endpoint. And you can see that here. But how do I differentiate between the different collections of APIs that I might have, right? So that's what this suffix is. So it gives us a way of saying, these are my conference APIs. I might have ordering APIs. I might have catalog APIs. Think about
right. And each one of those are hosted in a different instance, right? And so they can scale. They have the I assume, right? You can do different things to them, but the end user thinks, oh, that must all be one big. Well, they don't really care, but it appears it's all one big site, right? It's all one big API.
Exactly. As far as the end user is concerned. Now, something we'll talk about later, they may not be able to see all of those APIs that you have listed here, because there are things that we can include, and we'll show this a little bit later, called products, where I can define a product, and inside of that product, define the APIs that are included in that product. So you may be interested in our catalog. Yeah. So you might be interested
so
in
product,
a catalog.
like I'm selling a product, right? These APIs are my product. So I have my well, I don't know. Let's just say we sell bicycles and we sell cars. And so we might have an API for like looking up bicycles and another API for looking up cars, right? Well, if you're a customer in the cars product, or you're a customer of the bicycle product, or maybe you're a customer of both, right? And I can limit the APIs you see because of that.
Yes. And all of the and then the things that Chris was talking about rate limiting, or limiting who has access to those APIs. We can include those based on either an all up API management instance, or based on the specific product themselves. So it gives us a way of saying, well, if you're going against their catalog, you can only make 10 calls a minute. Whereas an order, you might be able to make,
we don't mind.
Exactly. So, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll see those a little bit later on as well, but just realize,
is that
this
new?
is
I don't remember
some of the
that
things.
feature.
So I'm going to hit create, and what that's going to do is that's going to go ahead and pull those in. You see, we now have our demo conference APIs, and I've got a whole collection of operations inside of here, much like we had laid out inside of this Swagger definition. So I could even go and do the get speakers, and I have essentially, so from my get speakers here, this gives, think of this section here. See if I can move this around a little bit, make it bigger. This section here, when we talk about API management being the facade over top of your API components, think of traffic comes through the front end. So that's this section here. It gets processed as on the way in. That's this section here. Back end is whatever that API is that it winds up talking to. Then as it comes back out and sends the response, there's outbound processing that can happen as it makes it back out through the front end. Okay. So because of these 4 boxes, there are things that we can do at this layer to either authenticate, limit traffic, do things at this layer before it ever goes to the backend API. We could cache data out here so that it never goes back and asks the API for that data, because change all that often, so we can just cache it at the API management layer. Same thing on the outbound processing. Yeah. On the outbound processing, and we'll see this one in a minute, we can actually change the shape of the data that gets returned to mask certain information.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, wow.
All of that will be shown very shortly. So
just to be clear, you generated this from, was it from a Logic app or a web app?
So this was generated from a web app.
Okay.
And that web app that lives at conference websites or conference API.azurewebsites.net includes an open API definition. And what we did was look at that and pull that in to create all of these operations in the demo conference API.
So if you don't have the Swagger, I'll use the word Swagger, even though, like you said, it's open API definition. If you don't have that, and you just have, it's pretty easy to have that nowadays because it's sort of like built in, right? But maybe you have an older API and it doesn't have that kind of definition. Can it still interrogate the code? Like, how would it know what to do?
Yeah, so it would not. So what we would have to do then is say something like, right, something like this, give it a name. We have to give it whatever the URL is that it points to. So,
That's interesting. I found it interesting that that for the purposes of this demonstration, we're pulling from a public site.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So it basically just looks at the Swagger definition in JSON, right? And that's what you did.
Exactly.
Okay. Huh.
So in this case, we don't have that. So we have to stand it up ourselves. So we can say, well, we want our suffix to be, my app eyes, and that's it. That's all we need to do to get it.
Now, how would you know that that's a get or a post or one of those kind of things?
Well, we haven't done the operations yet. So all we've done.
Oh, we haven't done the operations yet. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So now that's when we can get into the operations, and we can say,
right.
This is products, right?
Right. But we'd have to do that manually. So if you have that Swagger definition, it just simplifies this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And let's face it, as I said, the Swagger stuff is so easy nowadays. But I think it's like out of the box with .NET, ASP.NET now, right? You create an API, and it's sort of like in the box.
Enable the configuration, but yeah. So if you have older ones where you don't, you certainly can do it manually. So,
right. Good to know. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's see. So we go ahead and I'm going to get rid of What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about, since we kind of touched on it, the products. So this is a way of defining that collection of APIs that you want to group together, have certain sets of policies around them. And policies are those things that we were looking at when we think of inbound and outbound rules that we put in place, and have people subscribe to these products. Now, they could be your own internal developers, or they could be external developers who are looking to consume your information, right? So if we go ahead and add something called catalog, catalog items, and all I would need to do is to go ahead and, that's enough to get this started. But what I can also do is include a subscription count limit. So how many people can subscribe to this specific product? Maybe I don't want everyone to be able to subscribe to it. Maybe I want to cap this off at 1,000 people because I don't need that many people going against it. So that's one aspect that we can control at this point. The other is to automatically go ahead and publish this, because until the product gets published, people are not going to be able to go ahead and ask to subscribe to that product. We're going to do that here.
So this isn't something that we're controlling. Well, think about this. So someone, what you just said, someone has to ask to subscribe to this. So it's not like I'm going to pick a group out of AD or something like that and say the following users all have access to this. This is a subscription model, like a user has to request it or something.
I believe you. Let me just check something real quick here, because could we do this? A group.
Well, the word product means something in API management, right?
Yes.
Because I don't want to confuse it with maybe an API of products. This is
right.
That's a term that means I don't know. I guess maybe an API facade. I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of what you're doing. So
yeah.
No, you're thinking about it the right way. That's why I called it catalog instead of products. But yeah, it's just the idea is that you're adding the things that you add that people can subscribe to. Is they're called products.
Right.
Yeah. Try not to overload that term, but yeah, I agree. But yeah, so you can attach your API management to an Azure AD instance, so that you can get authentication going for the people who want to come and access and subscribe to your APIs, essentially. So that's something that can happen too. That's why you're able to create groups and have those groups get attached to the various products that are there.
Okay. Cool.
So now that we have essentially this new product here, I can go back to our APIs. I can look at my demo conference API. I can see all the operations here, and maybe I've got this one here around topics. Sorry, not that. I can look at the settings. That's right, because it's all up for the demo conference API. I can look at the settings for that set of APIs and say, not only is it unlimited, but I'm also going to include the catalog product group inside of here too, right? So if somebody wants to get access to it, they can have either one of those. They can subscribe to either one of those products, and then they will be able to see this collection of APIs. Whereas if we look at the Echo API one, save it. If we look at the Echo API one, it has starter and unlimited. So if you're subscribed to catalog, you would not see that collection of APIs there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I'd like to see, eventually, if you can, at some point, like how does someone subscribe or whatever, but whatever it is that you do to,
Yeah, we can do that because we can show the developer portal. Should we do that now?
Well, it's up to you. You know, if you think it makes sense to show it now, sure. There's a developer portal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our developer portal, and I think first time launching it. So let's see what happens. Website ready.
So the developer, in this case, are we talking about the developer who's building this or the developer who might be consuming this API?
Yeah, it's the latter. It's the person who will be consuming your APIs.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Now, you
Okay.
can totally customize this however you want, right? We could go ahead and take this logo here.
Oh, yeah. So this is where you have your company logo. This is like the gateway to all your APIs, and someone can, okay, I'm getting it.
But yeah, we change this. That's what I want. So we edit it.
Contoso's doing pretty good. They got 25 million API calls daily. It's quality service right there.
Yeah. I must have to upload those assets to be able to do that. So let's. So right now, I'm in as I'm the administrator. So because I'm authenticated into this browser, it's going to go ahead and show me that. And you can't see my screen right now, can you?
Well, I'm seeing the one where you have new in private window. I can see that. Oh, you created the new in private window already, didn't you?
Yeah.
You're not sharing your desktop, are you?
I am not. Let's see. All right. Two things we need to do. One is to go into right. Oh, here we go. Operations publish. So much like we could have created the products and just added them into the environment and not published them. Same thing's true for the developer portal. So right now it is in a state where it's not published. If I go ahead and do this and say publish the website, while that is being published, I'm going to go back to Skype. Stop sharing.
Yep.
Close down a couple things.
Someone in chat, in YouTube chat, Jay Whalen says Halo Infinite walkthrough. I don't know what that means.
I think he spotted that in recent search results, perhaps.
Yes. I did finish it last night.
Oh, nice.
Have you gotten a chance to play it all?
Yeah, I played over the break, and I finished my first run through on heroic.
Oh wow. I don't think mine heroic isn't that top?
No. Legendary is still to come. I wasn't sure what to expect.
Oh, it was on Rich's browsing. Are they saying it was on your browser? I didn't even notice it. Okay.
Yeah.
I get the joke now. It showed that you were okay. Sorry, I did not understand what you guys were talking about. Yeah. You never know what's going to come up when you're doing a demo, right?
A little bit.
That's cool. Okay, so now you're in the in private window, so it's not you, Rich Ross, logged in now, right?
Here I can explore the APIs. Guys are available. I can products. Right now I just have the starter and the unlimited available. I think we have to push the catalog one, but I could look at from here and say starter. Under starter, we only see Echo API. Remember when products that were assigned in there, that was the only one that was listed.
Okay, so when you just create this, they give you some samples. Like the Echo API is a sample, a starter subscription that's very bare bones, and then an unlimited subscription for your paying users. And so the sample is there. That's what all this stuff means. Is it's a sample. It's not to suggest that your API is going to have a starter subscription. You get rid of that stuff and do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is how, if we go to oh, that's why. Okay. So back to our products. The API demo, we look at products. The ones that we're able to see are the ones that we let guests be able to see. How the starter one and the limited one both have the guest item or the guest prop or control included. That's why we only see that one out on the developer side or on the developer portal. If I go in here and add group, add guests, because that's the only one left. Yep, it's already been successful. So if I go back and look at this and look at it, I now see catalog out there. Catalog.
That's easy.
Access the demo conference. Yeah, I mean it's pretty. As long as you know where to light things up, it's pretty easy. Those pieces in place. Now I can go through the process of signing up, so that I get an account in this environment, and then from there I can subscribe to the guides, and then that would let me look at the Swagger definition or the Open API definition, do testing against that, and then see all of the data around my API that's in there, right? How many times have I used it? How many calls do I have? Do I have a rate limit on that API or not?
All right. So let me ask you this. So sign up and subscribe are two different things. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Sign up, I assume sign up is the account level thing, right? And subscriptions are like the purchases or the specific APIs. Now that I'm authenticated, almost like authentication and authorization, probably, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So so to sign up, what kind of options are available there? Like, is this creating? Yeah, you're creating an account, like an email and a password.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Okay. So I guess there's got to be a way to deal with, like, we have a database full of users or something like that, already, or like importing them maybe.
Well, you could. I mean, so what we didn't do. Oops.
I'm just throwing random questions at you, trying to make it difficult. Yeah, okay. This is what I was wondering about here, too. Since you were using username and password, I was wondering if there's a way to add. There it is, right?
Yep. So you can include authorization endpoint. So if you're using some identity provider, and include that here and set up all the properties for that.
Well, that's interesting. So as an example, not to talk about, competitors, I'm not promoting a competitor or anything like that, but if you use something like Okta, you could configure Okta into this here, right there, I guess.
You could configure any identity provider that uses OAuth 2 or OpenID Connect. Yep.
Yeah, so that seems pretty flexible. That's cool.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Or Azure AD, I assume, as an OAuth provider.
Yeah, Azure AD B2C, right? Because you might be talking against, consumer accounts, those kind of things. So.
Yeah, very cool.
But short of that, you've got a user store inside of here for for those people who sign up. So if I go back to this and finish the sign up.
Oh yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Right. What is that? A Q? Yeah.
UDP.
N4PH. Capitals. Yeah, that looks right. Good job.
Nice. Now, oh, already a member? Sign in. Okay.
Just follow the instructions for your email. You got to verify your account.
Exactly.
You could do that off screen, I assume.
Yep. Highly recommend. I don't know if you saw, but user profiles inside of Edge. They're similar to user profiles inside of Chrome. Are very helpful when you're doing demos like this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Back to.
So it looked like anyone can sign up. That's an interesting thing too. What if, maybe you don't know this or maybe you do, but what if I don't want anyone to be able to sign up? I mean, sure, I don't have to grant them access into one of the APIs, right? I assume that they're going to then register or subscribe, and I could always say no to the subscription. But I work at a company where we only allow certain customers to use our APIs.
Okay.
Does that fit into this model?
Sure. So you could give this link to your customers and say, I want you to, if you want, so let's say this is what happened, right? I've received a link from your company and I've signed up for your account. I've authenticated myself so you didn't see off screen. So I use the link to get past my email address. And then I can come in here and actually explore those APIs. Oh, this is Demo Conference API. This is what Andy told me about. I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And I can see all of the operations, just like we did when we were in the portal. I can go over here and I can try it. Unable to complete the request because I don't have a subscription key. Looking for it here.
But what if I don't want people to get to this at all, right? Like, what if I want to have this private and only give it to certain customers, and I don't want them to share it with their friends? I don't even want them in here. Is this not the use case for that kind of scenario?
No, it absolutely is. So you can not, we have those, things kind of lighting up on there by default. You don't have to include those APIs out there for unauthenticated people or those who are not subscribed to your products.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking that I wouldn't even want people to sign up if they're not invited or something like that. Sort of like that invite key.
You can control that side of it as well, right? So
okay, that's what
so that when somebody goes to sign up, you can make it so that there's someone on the admin team who gets notified to approve or unapprove, kind of have a workflow.
Yeah. See, I can't trip you up. You got answers. You got it all.
Let's see. So I can actually subscribe. Say I want to subscribe to this product. And it actually gave me a subscription. So we don't have anything in place right now that that says I've got to approve that subscription.
Okay.
Inside of API management, right? Products. We look at subscriptions. Kind of policy subscriptions. Yes. I know you can do it. It's not letting me, oh, there you go. Requires approval. So if I click that,
Mm-hmm.
now it's going to, anytime somebody wants to sign up for catalog, do it for that one. Let's do this one. Same thing for this. Access control. Okay, so now if I go back to, hopefully it won't make me re-sign in. If I go to home, see this product here. I go ahead and oh, it tells me what my state is, right? So right now,
submit it. There it is. Yeah, submit it. Right.
If I go back to here, admin, someone has done a subscription here, I can
submit it. Yeah.
I can basically, allow them to have access to it. They did. So just by going through and doing it. Nope, not now. Thanks. So I can also do things in here like suspend subscription if things are out of hand, cancel it outright, or just delete it if they're
regenerate the keys right there. You can force the keys to get regenerated too, which is cool. And what's interesting, so this is, you're in the developer portal, so you can see your customers' keys.
I'm in the Azure portal, and can I see? So those I can.
I thought I saw it somewhere where it was on some screen.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, so you can, which isn't necessarily so bad. I don't know. I'm not saying that's a problem. And there's probably some RBAC around that where you could probably change that too. I wouldn't be surprised, but because you're the developer, you're not the customer. You're the owner of the API.
I'm the administrator of the API management.
The administrator of the API, right? And you can see their primary keys, which is okay.
Not really.
Sometimes they help with that. Anyway, what's that?
I mean, I can do the changing of them, which I think is important. But
yeah, right. Yeah. So let me ask a question from a different perspective, and I feel like we talked about this 3 years ago, whenever this was that we did API management. So you just put, and I'm sort of changing, maybe the direction a little bit here. So tell me if you want to do this later. But you just wrapped this whole API around the subscription and the authentication, essentially. And what if I have the URL from the old API before it was an API management? Like, what's preventing people from ending around this thing?
Great question. So, and that's kind of what we have here, right? I could drop this URL in the chat, and it's a public URL. You all can go ahead.
Right. That's the original URL. Yeah.
What you want to do is there's a couple things you can do. One of those is on the API itself. So wherever that API is hosted, you can essentially make it in Azure, this is how you might do it. You would make it a private endpoint so that the only, basically defining by making it a private endpoint, you're basically saying that the only thing that can talk to this API or this web app comes from API management.
Okay.
So in doing that, you're not making it publicly accessible anymore. You're saying the only way to get to this app service or the web API that's hosted on there is if it's coming from API management.
Okay. So just to be clear, in case, and again, I don't want to overstate, I could be wrong, but this is one of those steps that it doesn't happen automatically.
No.
Okay. So there's like I think that to me, that's like one of these best practices. Like now you got to go in there and turn it off. Cause I think that that's part of the whole thing. You don't want people going around. There's a reason you're putting this API management on top, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you can do similar things with logic apps and their endpoints or functions in their endpoints, because obviously, or ultimately they reside inside of a web app or have that web app kind of functionality. So you have a way to do that. The one thing to consider is that's typically, not to get into all the licensing side of it, but that is, a premium SKU on a web app. So you're talking about one of the higher end services to be able to put that into a private endpoint. What you might want to do instead of doing that for all of your, because if you think about this and you have microservices, you're probably going to have many of these services that you need to now hide behind that architecture. There is still, this is probably, I think, close to 5 years ago, we came out with an app service environment. It is essentially a way of having a private network around your app services, so that you've kind of put that architecture in place so that you need some way to route traffic to them in order to be able to hit those endpoints. And then API management then becomes that way of navigating to that app service environment, seeing those APIs, and then be able to get that message back.
Yeah. So with an app service environment, I think that's like where you were saying. I think that's sort of like it's on its own network, right? And so on that network, I would be able to if I'm on that network, I could access that API. But if I'm not on that network, then I couldn't, right? And then this is sort of like the tunnel into that network, right? This is what lets you into that API. So if you have a bunch of like basic app service plan, website, some basic APIs, and they're just in like a basic, I forget what the names of them are, the cheaper tiers, let's just say, then
like basic or standard.
Yeah. Then, well, you're maybe not doing this anyway, right? But if you were, then you wouldn't probably have a way to limit. Just wondering, there's probably some other ways you could limit it.
Yeah, I mean, not really. So
we use a lot of those IP restrictions. I wonder if there's a way to do it with that.
Not sure. I don't.
Yeah, no, we'd have to check into that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, but in the end, it's still on to do even the IP restrictions, it's still sitting on some kind of a network, which means it's got to be a private endpoint.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking you just put an IP address that's, well, whatever. Yeah, who knows? I'm just thinking. I'm just trying to think out loud. Yeah.
So we are, just doing a time check. There are two more things that I kind of want to show. One thing, well, maybe three. One of those is going back to our user profile or our developer portal. See here that I've got my subscriptions, they're active. I can go into go to products. That's just my profile. Let's go to catalog. Got my demo conference API. Because I've subscribed to this, I can try it. And I actually have, because I've subscribed to us, I've got an authorization or subscription key here. That to make my HTTP request.
Oh, it puts it in for you automatically. That's easy.
Yes, because I'm subscribed. I've signed in, and I'm subscribed to the.
It says value is required up above. You see that under ID?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
cores on the fire. Okay, interesting.
you got cores enabled or something like that?
I don't. So let's show that. So let's go back to API. Remember, right under the API, demo conference, settings. Oh, this gets into, okay, yeah, that's where it is. Design. I think it is. There, sorry, one other place. Right.
You'll get there.
This one, snippets.
Inbound processing.
Yeah, so looking at the inbound requests, cross-domain
Cores.
policies. Copy this. Since we're looking at the inbound one, I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. Yes, it's star. Allow everything. I know it's not secure, but fields of incorrect values.
Uh-oh.
27.
Cores. You have base. Oh no, that's a different thing. Inbound. What's that base underneath it? Is that supposed to be there?
Yeah. So if there's another layer above this.
Yep. Multiple root elements.
Maybe. Oh, because of this.
Star cannot be used on a resource that supports credentials. Is there a different attribute instead of a star? Is there something that says you're authenticated or something like that?
No, stars just means everything.
Yeah, and I thought this is interesting because this is the origin, not the user. This is just where they're
Right.
where it's coming from, right?
Yeah. 15. Oh, allow credentials true.
Oh. Okay.
Nice. Okay. That's
There you
now
go.
there. Let's go back to the other one. That's okay. Here's all our values back. This is our list of speakers.
You got some good speakers.
Yeah. So
You got Scott Goo.
Yeah. Heard of him. So what we have in here is something that we want to kind of clean up. We see information about the back end services, right? So we've got
Security.
the ASP.NET version. Yep. We've got the powered by component. So we don't really want to have those hanging out there. The other thing we want to do is we've got this, which even though we might have put this behind the private endpoint and not make it accessible, we're still telling the recipient of this call that's still our backend API, right?
Right.
We got it there, we got it here. So there's a couple of things we can do if we go back to our environment here.
I bet that's going to be on like outbound processing or something like that, right?
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to do show snippets. We're going to look at our transformation policies, and we're going to do two things. We're going to do set HTTP header.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it to you in this format. It actually having that. Name of this is going to be let's see. Well, the name of that is going to match the name of the value that we want to get rid of, right? So in this case, reading the chat there, Andy.
Yeah, I saw. Chris is having some fun.
I didn't see it, so you got to share.
I was thinking Chris is being awfully quiet today, and then he's busting my chops. I guess it was a spoiler because I said I'll bet it's in the outbound. And Chris said I'm spoiling it there, but I don't think. Come on, Chris, you're so quiet today.
No, I'm watching and making sure that the stream is still operating. It's funny how you forget how much you forget how to how everything works, kind of. And so it's like, okay, I still see the mic, I still see the sound levels going. All right, hold on.
It's always good to make sure it's still working.
Yeah, like we got so comfortable with it last year, and then it's been quite a number of weeks. So now I'm like, hold on, is it still on Twitch? Yeah, okay, good.
So we're going to do this. We're actually going to do delete.
Yeah, so that's going to remove those attributes that you were talking about.
Yep. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to up here to show snippets. And again, under transformation, because we're transforming the response, we're going to mask URLs in content.
You want to mask them, or do you want to mask them? Okay, yeah, I get it. Right. Okay.
Take that. We're going to bring that down here as well.
I tell you what, how many years has it been now of getting like security, or I don't want to say security, but like getting reports when somebody does a test on your site and they say remove the X powered by ASP.NET header. I think I've been seeing that for probably at least 15 years. And maybe we used IIS to do it, or maybe some gateway, or maybe an appliance. And here's API management to save the day and say, I'll take care of it for you.
Yeah.
We'll have to remember to do it. But yeah, we can do the thing.
I've seen this.
Well, but that's why you run your compliance checks,
yeah.
To make sure, right? There's other tools to help you get your back on that.
I've just been thinking about that. Like when I saw that this is what you were going to do, it reminded me, I'm not even joking. It reminded me of that report that says highs, mediums, and lows. And there it is in the low section. And I can think of dozens of them that I've seen for dozens of sites that I've worked on over many, many, many years. It goes back. It has a long history.
Yes, it does. Just like us.
That's funny.
So we put those policies in. We have saved it. Let's go back to what has now become our test environment, which is as a developer using the try it API harness. I'm going to let's see. Primary catalog. I don't need any values. That's fine. Send. See here our. We don't have that included anymore. It's gone. We said
look
delete
at
it.
that.
It's gone. And look here.
API demo.
Well, that's fine because that is our API
that's the one you want.
Instance.
Yep. No, that's really cool.
So a lot of cool things there.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
And there was a lot of other options. I know there was other options in there of things you could add as filters and stuff like that. It seemed like there was,
Well, what I like about it is like
ones that are more regular. Yeah.
I like people work hard to put. They'll build their API and then they would have to like say, okay, this API is going to get deployed in dev and in test and in I don't know, whatever your environments are called, and staging 2 and staging west. And we're going to have something that we read in order to figure out the headers for all of these deployments. And again, API management is like, no, just write your app. Just write your app. Yep. We'll take care of that just in time. I was trying to think how, at the last second. That sounds kind of weird. But we'll take care of it just in time. But they're important concerns. And what would happen is like, I'm sure I've done it before. That's why I'm thinking of this stuff. I'm thinking of that sessions file or that sessions config or sessions something where it's like, okay, well, when we set up an environment, we're going to have to say that this is the URL for it. And so now your app is figuring out where it lives, and that's all ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what? I thought so. I thought that existed. Although, unless he just like...
Yeah. No, I had it buttons. I forgot. We haven't done this for a while. I mean, I have my little sound effects and I like to play around. And Hector Thanks, Hector. Hector says this is great. Thank you, Hector. Yeah, this is a cool product. Now, not to rain on the parade, this is not free. Well, this is not free, right?
No, this is a paid service. There are various tiers depending on what you want to do. You may not, and you may not need to go all the way up to the highest level of tiers. There's also a developer instance so that you can try this out in your environment, and just like we're doing here, right? I've created a developer instance just so I can see all the bells and whistles and see what's possible before we go ahead and start putting it on the charge. There is also a consumption model. So being able to only pay for the amount of time you consume API management. I'll be honest, I haven't played a ton with that, but that's another, so there's different flavors of not only from the SKUs, but also just from being able to do a consumption model of this. One thing I do want to point out is when you start doing APIs, you should figure out what your versioning strategy is going to be. So in this case, I have version 1, which is, kind of what we're defaulted to. It's our current version. If I go to our revisions tab, I can actually now add a new version here.
Versioning APIs is a big topic.
Yeah.
I think, but so you're creating a version here, but this is the API. This is I don't know if I'm going to use the right word here, but I'm going to say this is a facade on top of my API, right?
Correct.
So my underlying API, like just changing a version here is not going to do anything, right? Like my API underneath needs to change, right?
Yeah. I mean, so there might be a reason why you want to, for whatever reason, there might be something that, version 2, it makes it different than version 1. Maybe version 1 didn't have rate limiting and version 2 does. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, what you're doing is you're abstracting the versioning from, once again, we're taking another thing that usually gets coded into all the controller attributes and whatever. I don't know. I mean, there's various ways to do it. But here's a team embedding that into the app instead of concentrating on the API's logic and saying, let's take this cross-cutting concern that every API's got to deal with and let API management deal with it. That's what I like about that. I know there are things to think through, because it's not just check a box here and your API version is shipped. It's like, well, we gotta version it, and then we got to ship that, and then we got to tell API management where to find it. But let's let it deal with the how developers will access it.
Yeah. I mean,
will it do like sort of routing for versions? So like, let's say I keep version 1 around. Some customers aren't ready to move to version 2 yet. Can API management help me with that situation?
Yeah, so the versioning can take place in one of 3 locations. You can include it as part of your URL. So, v2 dash or v2/conference or conference/v2, however you want to do it. You could do it as part of a query string. So version equals whatever, or v equals whatever. And then also you could do it through your header. Say, this is the version I want you to talk to. So it gives you the ability, even though both version 1 and version 2 are online, if I don't specify a version, the current one is the one that's going to win out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I think part of that other component is, think about why you might need to have versions at this layer, right? Typically, it's when your contract changes, right? When I make an API call to demo conference API and I say get speakers, I know I don't have to include any parameters in that. If I change that and say, well, you need to at least give me, for some reason you need to specify, the number of speakers I want to send back because I'm not sending all anymore. you know, if I require that now, I've changed the contract for how that API works. That's a perfect example of where you would go ahead and make a revision at the API management layer, even though probably all along the underlying API could handle that. It's just that now I'm requiring the end user to handle and give me that information and make them aware that things are different now.
Yeah. I have so many things are going through my head about ideas. I'm thinking about ways that we could use this at work.
Well, you know,
And, ideas.
there are some things we didn't get to, right? Like,
Yep.
we didn't get to, if your API, like, if you're building your API, but you've designed your contract pretty well, you kind of know what things should look like. API management will help you work on that front end before the code's even written, right?
Yeah, you could actually mock out your API.
Okay, yeah, that's what it's called.
We could, yeah, we could.
And that's pretty cool.
That's cool. There's been times when we've needed to stand up an API for a customer, and we know it's not ready yet, and we just want to mock something up, and we actually have to sort of deploy like a fake API, you know, just with an endpoint on there so that they can call it. And you're saying here I can mock it right in here. That's cool.
I don't think I need to supply. Let me just double check. No, I don't need a URL or anything like that. Just this. Let's go full. Let's make it that. Yep, that's fine. Suffix is going. Doesn't need it.
You call it fake or something if you wanted to, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't need to specify a sub on that. And then that is it. Right. So when I go ahead in here and do, so all I've done is created the shell of my APIs. I still need to add an operation. And in this case, I'm going to have an operation that is calling it. It's going to be a get. What's cool here is that the responses side, I can add a response.
Oh, no.
And then so I can say a 200. I can have a description of what that response is. But what's even more important is I can include a representation. In this case, application JSON. /JSON. And define.
Oh my gosh. It's even got a little it's even helping you with some completion, I think, right?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
This. Now, that's it. That's all I need to do. So I'll save it.
Oh, that's helpful. Wow.
Yeah.
And I can go ahead and test it.
Do you have to enable the cores on that one too? No.
Well, I should need it. I should need cores from here. So if I just do a test. Then...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, like we already talked about, like this has built-in support to say, hey, take a function app, turn that into an API, take a logic app, turn that into an API. Or here's a website out on the web somewhere with a Swagger contract, turn that into an API. So it's really flexible on what it can connect to, and then start mapping, for lack of a better term. But then it'll even say like, hey, you don't even have to go touch your app. I'll handle your versioning. I'll take out, this rogue header or modify it in some way, modify the URL so that your return results with links embedded are, coming back to me still. The mocking, the developer portal, which was really cool, ship this to the developers and say, hey, you want to get started with our API? We'll even handle the sign up and the subscription, or at least maybe I shouldn't say handle it, but at least and maybe it does more than we even saw tonight, but here's a ready to go site that now you've just got to get branded, pick the features you want, don't want, pretty neat. And I think maybe what we were talking, I don't know if this is true, Rich, but earlier, one of the things that immediately went through my mind, because Andy said it just as I think I was thinking, and a lot of people were thinking it, is, well, why don't you just go make that end run out around to the conference API site? But is that because that those are different Azure products that would, like maybe API Gateway or Front Door or something that would control, and I might be picking the wrong things, is you would use those to say, you don't get in here, right, but API management gets in here so that it can be the, I don't know, like the concierge or something. I don't know if that's a good.
Yeah, like love treatment to get you through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw what Rich was doing in the background too, Chris. While you were talking, he went and added that mock response. Right. So you're sort of doing that mock a little bit differently than the way you were showing it before, but that sort of does make sense, at least, that it's going to do that. I think when you were configuring the responses, that was probably the optional. Is that a little bit more like the documentation, so you know what kind of things it responds to?
Well, it was so. When we look at what our front, oh, sorry, I did the wrong one. APIs. Sorry. Hit again because I just saw it. When I went through this, there we go. That's what I want. When I defined this operation, I gave it a name. I gave it a URL, just a slash whatever URL. But your fake API doesn't have a base URL in it, right? We didn't give it a location. We look at set this, right? This is empty. So that's why it was throwing that 500 error. What we need to do is tell this particular API that when that request comes in and it's going to go ahead and call this operation, don't go down to the back end level.
Yeah.
You're just going to sit here and get that component. Let's add that policy. I don't know why that's not there. Boom. Boom. It's enabled. I go to test. Now I see.
And it says mocking is enabled, so it's telling you flat out like we're mocking, right? And there's the response. Yeah, yep. That's really cool. I don't know how much time you have, to keep going on this. I would like to hear a bit, if you have anything you could say about the caching. And what kind of things are capable. I mean, ASP.NET has caching in it. There's lots of ways to do caching. Is that something that I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Like, is it? I guess.
Well, I can tell you where you would go ahead and set it. So if we go use our fake API, well, actually we can do this here. Let's try this. So conference API, got cores, got base. If I go into add a policy, this is where I cache responses, and I can say how long that's going to be. Look at all the other. If I want to vary it by, who's calling this API. So if this is one developer group might have one set of caching, while another developer group might have a different one. So I might want to be able to turn that on and say, if you're coming in and you're a different developer group, you're going to get the full request processed. Whereas if you're part of the same developer group, I got the data for you already. Right. And then this is a 5-minute
That's pretty easy to configure. It looks that way.
Now you can set up an external caching environment, right? Right now, I think it's just using, what is in API management itself. Get speakers design tabs. It's actually. Hang on one second. Let's see this.
You got a comment there.
So,
another YouTube viewer, Timothy Huber, says, I grok it as a proxy with fancy XML configs for all operations of the API. Really powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I might have even spoke wrong when I talked about the API gateway, because I was reading the docs while we were talking, and I guess there is an API gateway. It's problem that term is so overloaded, right?
Well,
like
app
we can
gateway.
sit here and talk about an API gateway in a conceptual term, but Azure API Management has a gateway. And then I guess for efficiency, you can install a self-hosted gateway that I guess basically means that over at your, I think I'm reading this right, is that it means that you would put this on you would deploy this to your app, and then that improves the efficiency a little bit because you're doing caching and stuff earlier, I guess. But I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it before your traffic travels all the way down to there.
Right. So there certainly was talk about caching in here, saying that, hey, yeah, we'll cache responses because just like you said, Andy, it feels like something that you were used to sitting at the application layer is now, well, wait a second, where's that going to go now? Because that's so important.
Yeah. I mean, I just think there's a lot going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to set it up at work and dive into this a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the idea that we can have these microservice-y, and I'm saying microservice-y because whether they truly are actual microservices or not, I can have lots of APIs just deployed as different applications, but yet bring them together and put like some. And even sort of like rename them or rebrand them, so to speak, with new URLs and paths to getting to those APIs and stuff like that. And you could sort of like build back. You could have some messy stuff, and you could overcome some of the mess you might have by putting this in front and cleaning things up.
Yeah. And we haven't done anything even remotely starting to go down the path of the authentication side of it, right? So how can we secure those back-end components? Make sure that when someone comes to the API management front door and says, front end, let's not say front door, it's a different product, comes to the front end and says, hey, I want to talk to this API, we can interrogate the token and say, well, that API is secured by this particular audience token. Do you have that? And if not, I stop you right here at the front door and never bother the API to let them know that somebody was asking for them. Right. So there's a lot of, the authentication and the security side of it is, that's a whole show in itself. We wanted to go down that path.
Right. So there's a question in the chat. I guess I would say it's checkm80 or checkm80, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to run some common .NET assembly logic for a grouping of APIs before a request is handed off to the requested API? And then it says, think of it as similar to an HTTP module and IIS.
Yeah. No, not there. There's not. Well, let's see one.
Yeah, maybe I was just thinking in policy you would have to have something that you could call out to maybe call another API, but beforehand.
Yeah.
It'd almost be like you would have to call another API before you.
So there is something called policy expressions. I'm not going to say that this is powerful enough, but it's showing examples of code where somebody says something like maybe they pull out of the request header, they pull something out of a request header and then maybe make a decision of some kind. So I wonder if that's powerful enough for something like that.
Interesting.
It just says there's something called API Management Policy Expressions. This article discusses policy expressions syntax in C#7. Each expression has access to the implicitly provided context variable and an allowed subset of .NET framework types. Interesting, right? I wonder how, maybe.
Maybe.
I think
Rich, also, when you were scrolling, I saw something that said, I think it was under like flow. It was under advanced policies, and there's this control flow. And I was kind of wondering, conditionally apply policy statements based on the results of the evaluation of Boolean expressions. Use at any scope in the inbound and outbound sections. That's interesting. I was wondering if you could use a control flow to make a decision that says, well, some users are going to get API version 1 and some users are going to get API version 2 or something like that, even like with a control flow where you can sort of, I don't know, just trying to think of things that could be used for.
Yeah. So I think, Chris, that would be, well, check him 80. I think Chris's comment is something that I would take a look at, because I think that might be worth taking. That might help. And I think, Chris, interesting. How did that get in there? Did you paste that?
Yeah, Chris, you got the wrong URL in there. You put the Troy.
Yeah.
There you
no,
go.
I know. I was trying to fix it.
Okay.
I was trying to fix it.
Well, so anyway, I think the answer to Checkmate is that maybe not exactly, but maybe something similar, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. The only.
But your request is eventually going to go off to potentially to a web server where you could do that kind of logic on the actual API underneath the hood, right? So, maybe just not at this level.
Yeah, and that's. Yeah, I could see why you might want to do that, but yeah, that does put an extra link in the chain, which you don't necessarily always want to do with RESTful services, right? You want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a chain of RESTful services calling each other, because you end up, delaying things coming back up.
Yeah. Well, very cool.
Yeah. This one, a lot of fun. It's a lot going on inside of here. So, and it's, like I said, something we did 2 years ago. So we got to get back and dive a little deeper. So it was good to do that this time.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. It was a good refresher for me to see what's out there, and I enjoyed it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, all the things that they don't show up in demos. For instance, your backend API, you want to shut it off to the world and let API management be the only way in. What if you need certificates? What if you need stuff like that? I'm seeing in the documentation, I'm seeing how-to guides for protecting SPAs, for protecting APIs, for connecting to an internal network and stuff like that. So I feel like the scenarios have been thought out, and the idea is to say, let's maybe configure that once. And now you get to treat your API like something that's very configurable and customizable. And I don't want to necessarily call this like configuration as code, but it's more about configuration than it is about like writing more code to do something, writing code to rate limit, writing code to pick the responses that represent, your application's links. Oh, in dev it's this, and in prod it's that, and no, let this thing take care of it. And that's pretty nice. It reminds me of the old web application gateways that existed quite a long time ago, that were very popular in places I worked, because they had the same problem. They said, we kind of want to write this app, but why should it manage all of the organizational concerns? Can we turn that into something that's managed at a higher level? And here it is for APIs and in the cloud, so we don't have to deploy it anywhere. It's nice.
Yeah.
Cool, Rich. This is neat.
You're on mute.
Sorry.
Also?
I was, yeah. 1 second. So when I just want to wind up with this last 2 points. When I talk to customers about API, it's usually around API management. It's usually around the conversational microservices, right? How do I either that, or how do I expose out, my API landscape for customer, partner, what have you? There's another use case that I probably have spent an equal amount of time recently talking to customers about, which is, I've got these line of business applications on premises or in some location, wherever they are, and I want to use that I want to create an API over top of that data source to create what are called custom connectors inside of the Power Platform. We haven't, as a developer story, we haven't talked about Power Platform, which includes things like Power Apps, Power Automate, and low-code solutions to be able to build out, applications mostly by people from the business, but increasingly the development and the IT team, because it's quicker for them to get those things done. What API management gives us is, you've seen how we can connect to the API component. On the Power App side, it actually says, you want to create a custom connector? Great. You've got an API management environment in your Azure subscription. Here's the list of those API managements. And oh, by the way, which API do you want to include in this custom connector? So it's actually bridging all of that for the end user and not having them, what we did probably about 12 months ago, which was, hey, here's the URL to the API management instance. Here's the OAuth 2 connection strings. Here's all of this information so that we make a secure connection. So API management is increasingly becoming that glue between not just developer capabilities, but also those low-code business Power Platform capabilities too.
Right.
And we do have to do a show on Power Apps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, when you talk about like the low code, no code stuff, I've always been this sort of developer that's like, that's not for me, right? Like, I'm a developer, I write code, right? But I tell you what, I've seen some of this Power Automate stuff, and I'm just like, that's nice.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
It can make stuff easy. It's something that I feel like it deserves a look. Like it's the real deal. There's a lot going on there that you can make some pretty quick, especially if something's like sort of temporary, especially, you just want to sort of put together some little app for something, I've seen some people do some really cool stuff with the Power Platform. So I guess I'm saying, like, as a developer, I am interested in that. And I think it would be fun. I think it would be hard to do a show. I mean, there's so much there. It's almost like, that's not a show. But maybe not. Hey, Chops. Chops is saying hey. And Hector.
Hey, Chops. Yeah, I mean, we can look at it from what a developer might be looking at that platform for, right? What are the places where we know the developer needs to provide their expertise, right? Especially when you think about custom connectors. And to the point of, they're starting to have the capabilities of getting the Power Platform, Power App component into source control. So getting that application into a GitHub or getting it into an Azure DevOps and a repository so that we can iterate on that code that way. So, yeah. And being able to do all that through Visual Studio Code too. There's some hooks to make Power Apps editable up through there. So there is a lot for us to talk about as developers.
I saw an API management extension for Visual Studio Code that we didn't talk about at all. I hardly looked at it, but I thought, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that is pretty cool.
Neat stuff. So, I mean, I guess the thanks, Rich, for really leading us through that. And it looks like some folks that were here tonight are excited about it too. That's great.
Yeah.
But I guess the good news is this is us. We're back for 2022, and we'll be here next Wednesday at 8:30.
Yeah. And you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
We got a topic.
Yeah, that's right.
So next week, if you're going to be coming back and joining us, we're gonna talk about something that was came out. I believe that also came out at Ignite timeframe, and that's Azure load testing. So being able to run load tests against your services, wherever they might be, using this new feature or this new service in Azure. So we'll run through that. Show what that looks like.
That's another topic that just hits home. Like, I honestly, I don't know. Maybe you and Chris talked about it. Maybe I missed it. I did not know that was the topic for next week, and at work, like, we're getting ready to need to do that. And I'm just like, cool. You're hooking me up. You're just giving me like this show's great. I get, I just need to watch the show at work, and that'll just be my job. Like we'll talk about
what are you
it
doing while you're here?
We'll talk about it. Well, we'll talk about it on the show on a Wednesday night,
Okay.
and then Thursday I'll replay it at work, and I'll just do everything you say, and we'll have all the, I'm telling you, we're getting ready to do, a lot of testing stuff that we're working on, and I feel like there's some shows in there for me to lead us through as well. Some things that we're working on around testing. Big effort to change the way we're doing some testing at work, and
Nice.
so
There's another
No,
testing
that'd be really
platform I would really like to take a look at. Playwright, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
That would be a cool
that's
show.
something we're looking at as well. Sort of a competitor to Selenium, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Selenium is something of a staple, right? But from what I understand, Playwright's coming at it from a slightly different angle, and a lot of people are saying, "Hey, this is something to be checked out." It's not easy to. There's upstarts all the time that want to take on like the sort of the standard. Let's say if Selenium is that standard, right? But every time I do a search on Playwright, people are saying, "Well, now hang on, this is where there's some reasons why this is valid," and I don't recall what they are, but I was like, "Oh, okay then." So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to try to. I'll try to put together some shows for us on some of that stuff as we dive into it. I think over the next couple of weeks, I should have some more information, so that'll be good.
Yep.
Nice.
There's some other topics I know we want to talk about. I mean, and one thing is, we are developers. It's Dev Talk Show. Like we could talk about. There's some languages that I would like to talk about. So we've definitely got a lot that we're looking at doing, and also seeing if we can get. There's a lot of great people in the community who can come here and teach all of us. Because we certainly nobody knows everything. So, but this was pretty cool. So yeah, next week Azure load testing. I even hope the graphic is right. It's January 19th, 8:30 U.S. Eastern. We'll have to get that up on Meetup and try and push that schedule out a little bit so people know what's coming.
Yeah, we got to rock some tweets about it. Spread the word. We're back, baby. So, anything else, or are we gonna head out for the night?
No, ready to say goodnight here.
That was close to 2 hours, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good. Rich, you did a great job tonight, and I'll do our little sign off thing as Chris gets ready to hit the button. But listen, thanks for joining us. If you're here, we appreciate your being here. If you're watching us in the future, feel free on YouTube, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and do all those things that we need you to do so you'll know when we're coming back. If you're here with us on Twitch, you can follow us there. And for those of you that are just chilling and listening, we appreciate you. For those of you that jumped in the chat and had something to say, we appreciate you guys too. It's a big community, and we love it, and we always have fun with these shows. We hope you do too. We'll be back next Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube with the Dev Talk Show.